Hi, I'm Austin, and I've been an employee at my brother's startup for the past 2 years, and it's been going great. Great for the most part. Brian, my brother, is a straight-up genius. He skipped 2 grades as a kid. Brian didn't just stop there, though. He then aced his SATs and had enough college credits to graduate when he was 20. After that, my brother worked at Google for a year before throwing himself into entrepreneurship. Brian's startup became a wild success in a few short years. Angel investors flocked to the idea, and the orders came flowing in. In just 10 years, my brother has managed to get his home security startup's product installed all across America, with plans to go global. That's the good part. The bad part was when I officially got involved with the company. Why do I say officially? Well, because I've never had the same strengths as my brother. Brian's a tech-savvy super genius, while I've been struggling with grades since high school. You may think that's a recipe for resentment and disaster, but that's not the case. My strength lies in working with others and bringing out the best in them. I'm a people person, and I'm also really good at thinking unconventionally. Just because I couldn't get grades within the system doesn't mean I was a fool. In fact, the business that Brian runs right now came from a small idea I started when I was 16. Since I never paid attention in school, most of my time went into solving problems around our neighborhood. I figured out what people wanted to make their homes feel secure, and I did a ton of research on how to make these things affordable and modular in all kinds of building structures. So yeah, I'm no dummy. The issue was that our parents put a lot of pressure on me to focus on my grades and finish high school. I was willing to let the idea die, but Brian took over for me after he saw potential in the idea. I still remember how it happened during Thanksgiving dinner. So Brian, how's work? I heard that you're going to get a big bonus soon. Yeah, work is all right. It's not very interesting, Dad. I don't want to bore you with it. Nonsense, dear. You're doing so well. In fact, you're a great example for Austin here. I don't know what he does all day. He was chatting with the building manager just last week about some implementation plan, and the day after that, his Spanish teacher called and told me he hadn't attended a class in 10 days. Moom, what am I going to do by learning Spanish? I know gracias and sigh and all the basic stuff. I don't need anything more than that. Baby, I know that, but you must understand that grades are important. Oh, I don't know, Mom. I mean, I used like 10% of what I learned in school at work. Kiddo, you went to Stanford. Your 10% is the world's 90%, I'm sure. We just want Austin to understand the value of an education. Mom, Dad, you need to relax. I'm not in any trouble at school. I'm just not going to be valedictorian. Besides, I've been hitting it off with Mr. Marquez. Who? Our building manager. I've got a contract to get home security systems installed across the whole complex, and it's going to pay well. Yeah, I've been texting Austin about it. He's got a great idea on his hands. That was the seed of the million-dollar company that Brian runs now. I mean, it's not just him. I've been kept on as a silent partner. What does that mean? Well, it means that I get a share of the profits, but I'm not involved in the nitty-gritty like my brother. This system worked great for us. I used that money to backpack across Europe and gain experience. I did a bunch of odd jobs around the continent. I worked as a busboy in Berlin and a waiter in Paris, to name a few. Eventually, I even pursued a degree in management from Lyon. The positive side of all this was that I went to college on my terms and when I felt ready. I knew this all came from the money I was getting from the business, and I acknowledged that. I could have become a spoiled brat and coasted through life forever if I wanted to, but I was investing. Most of the profits that I got, and my long-term goal was always going to be to work with Brian once I got back. My parents were supportive of this dynamic between me and my brother, and the two of us were super excited to work together once I got back home. Right, the bad part. Everything I've told you up until now is the good stuff. The issues began last year when I came back to the States. I bought a house in Austin, Texas, kind of funny, Austin and Austin, haha, where our head office was based. I had decided that I had seen enough of the world, and Brian had told me that he had some issues that he couldn't solve. Like I said, my brother was a genius through and through, but he just couldn't read people, I know. We were still turning a profit, but the issue was that the people we employed just weren't very productive. So there were 2 main things that my brother wanted me to work on: creating a proper HR team and cutting the fat from the company. Anyone who's worked in a startup knows that things aren't as divided as with legacy companies. So almost everyone is a jack of all trades. But our company was scaling so fast that we needed to bring some structure into the company. I decided the best way to do this would be to get into the thick of things. I might have been inspired by Undercover Boss a tad bit, but I thought of leveraging my anonymity. Since nobody knew I was the CEO's brother, I could enter as an entry-level hire and see what the culture in the office was like. The real culture. Seeing through lies was also something Brian struggled with. But that's why we were a team. He brought the IQ and I brought the EQ. It was pretty easy to get into the role. I joined as a sales guy who would be in charge of expanding our client base. Brian put me into the team that had been showing the worst performance metrics, and I was going to report on them to him and the other members of our founding team. I know this sounds dodgy, but it was all for the best. I got introduced to the team lead, Gary, and I immediately pinpointed him as a problem person. "Hi, so you're the fresh meat, right?" I mean, I guess you could say that. "Hi, I'm Austin, nice to meet you." "Hey Austin, just listen up. We have one rule in the sales team here. What I say goes. Got it? Got it, boss?" I mean, you can imagine the kind of impression Gary gave off. He was exactly the kind of person I was wary of when I didn't want to go to college. He had an Ivy League education and an ego the size of a small planet. Just because he had a fancier degree than the other people on the team, he considered himself better than everyone else. Of course, that included me. Gary saw me as one of those stereotypical backpackers across Europe who didn't know how to make it in the real world. This couldn't have been farther from the truth. The ironic part was that he wasn't even great at sales. As a manager, he could kind of fly under the radar with corporate lingo and action plans and what have you, but the guy didn't know much about what we were doing here. However, I wasn't one to judge someone on day one, so I decided to see how things went. This was the bad part of our startup story. It felt really weird to be working undercover like this, and a lot of my conceptions about how our company was doing were shattered. I mean, I still believed in the fundamental idea, but I realized that things had become bloated while I was gone. Of course, it wasn't Brian's fault, but I began to realize that I should have been more involved from the get-go, especially if I wanted this to be my future. Along with Gary, there were a lot of people in middle management who were problematic. There was a clique of these educated bozos who created a lot of tension within the company. They were vindictive and stirred up a lot of office politics. Despite all being friends with each other, they would drop their friendships in a heartbeat in order to advance their careers. As you can imagine, there was a reason all of them were stuck in the middle management level. They didn't have the spark that would bring them up to something better, but they were competent enough to not get fired. Brian didn't notice their personality problems, and that's how they had survived in the company for so long. However, the real issue was how they treated all the people who worked below them. I don't know why they were like this, but all of them were super egotistical. During my time with Gary, I saw him shut down great ideas or steal credit from people on his team, and it just made my blood boil. Of course, anytime he would bring these ideas up in meetings, I would cut him down and make sure that he couldn't get away with it. And that's how I think we could get our East Coast clients onboarded much faster. "That's a great idea, boss. How would you implement that?" Why, by using that new software Lisa was telling you about, with the same use case you just mentioned. You must have misheard. You've only been here for a few months, Austin. What do you know about the company? That's kind of how our verbal spats used to go. Not soon after that, I heard from Brian that Gary had been incessantly complaining about me to the higher-ups. Of course, he didn't know that I was also technically a higher-up. In a way, all the times I butted heads with Gary did help me with my mission, because other employees at my level were a lot more friendly with me. Eventually, I began to reduce the amount of combativeness I had with Gary to get in his good books. Sure enough, it worked, and he took me under his wing as a kind of mentor. Of course, the guy was that big-headed. I mean, he couldn't be a good mentor for a kindergartner, but that was beside the point. At least by trying to get into his inner circle, I could try and accomplish my main goal. What's that? Well, it was to make sure that the workplace was where people with merit would get promoted. We wanted to be agile and smart and didn't want any office politics. I used to make a mental note of all the people who would come to me and complain about Gary taking credit for their ideas. At the same time, I would listen to Gary and all his ideas about how the office space should work. I was listening to all his trash to try and figure out the best policies to curb behavior like that. I would also try and spark conversations with people about how they would want to change the company and what they were passionate about. This research of sorts helped me figure out more about the problems plaguing our startup. I realized that our best talent was wallowing at the entry level, and their smarts never even reached Brian and the rest of the C-suite. It was almost like there was a wall between them and the higher-ups. Well, there was a wall, and it was Gary and his group of douchebags. One person who stuck out to me was Rebecca. She had joined our office through an unconventional route. Brian was getting a coffee at a Starbucks, and she was the barista. They struck up a conversation, and he was impressed by her ideas. That's how she got a job working in the sales team at our startup. We were both in the same department, and she was someone I saw as contributing to the future of the company. Yes, she was in sales, but her passion and charm were the exact fit for our future HR head. I told Brian as much, and he agreed with me. So, much to the surprise of Gary and his gang, Rebecca leapfrogged them and became the first HR head of our startup. She was ecstatic about the opportunity and confided in me about it. I already knew, but this was the first office interaction I had where I felt like I had made a positive change in the company. "Hey Austin, I need to speak to you for a second." "Hey Rebecca, what's up?" "Okay, you can't tell anyone about this, but I just spoke to Brian, the CEO. Yeah, I'm a big fan. What'd he tell you?" "Well, you know how you said I would be a good fit for HR? You were right, and Brian seems to think so too. He saw how well I get along with people and noted a few incidents where I helped solve some office spats. He wants me to lead an HR team and made me the head. I'm so excited." "Rebecca, that's great. I could tell you were destined for great things." It was. Weird to lead this kind of double life. I was finding myself closer to Gary and his inner circle while also making sure nothing else like it would exist in the company. But with better news, my gut feeling was correct. Rebecca turned out to be an awesome department head, and she upskilled herself like crazy. Our recruitment and turnover rates went down by 30%, and the company felt healthier than before. Half of my mission was complete. But because of her sudden promotion, something else came up. Gary and his friends were shocked by Rebecca's sudden promotion. They didn't like it one bit. I thought I had seen the worst of them, but there was a lot more to uncover. First of all, I had never realized just how sexist they all were. Gary and all his friends were kind of an old boys club, sure, but I thought it was just some weird elitism fantasy. Nah, they were genuinely uncomfortable taking orders from a woman. Another thing that shocked them was the fact that Rebecca got a promotion. In their eyes, anyone without a fancy degree was not cut out for a leadership position. This was exactly the kind of stereotype we were trying to eliminate at the company. I think this was the point when I realized that I should reveal my identity to everyone. My work undercover was pretty much complete, and all I needed to do was make sure there weren't any more problems that could come out of the woodwork. I reported everything back to my brother, and we decided that we needed to be transparent about everything that had gone down. So I was going to be invited to speak at our company's 10th anniversary event. But right up until the MC called me on the stage, I was going to be the nondescript sales guy. Planning for our 10th anniversary was super fun. Brian was really into it because it seemed like a significant milestone for us. The idea had grown into something that was used in some of the best hotels and neighborhoods in the United States, and it all started from a simple conversation with a building manager. It was deeply personal for both me and Brian, and my brother wanted to pull out all the stops. To do that, he wanted everyone's ideas. We opened a Slack channel where all the employees could bounce ideas off of each other, and our company even made a Pinterest board with everybody. The goal was going to be an inclusive and fun experience that didn't feel like something you had to show up for. In a way, I also wanted this to be the last test for Gary and his gang. If they were able to gel well with people in an informal setting, I thought it would be possible to bring out that side of them professionally as well. But they were the only people who weren't interested in engaging with the party. I guess they wanted it to be the usual kind of hedonistic bash that they thought was cool, complete with getting hammered in hotel rooms and trying to get with girls. Everything suggested that the best course of action was to kick out his entire group from the company. They were old school, and our startup wasn't the best place for them. Eventually, the plan for the party was decided: Vegas, baby. The whole company was going to go out for a week-long trip to Sin City. But unlike the usual gambling and evening shows, things were going to be even better. Brian had paid for everyone to experience a race car on a nearby track, along with a helicopter ride over the city, karaoke, and a talent show by the people in our company who were interested. A lot of people were interested, surprisingly. Sure, it was unconventional, but it was something that everyone was excited about. Well, almost everyone. To Gary and his friends, Going to Vegas and not getting wasted seemed like, well, a waste. They made it clear to me when I attended a weekly catch-up call with them. Man, I can't wait to go to Vegas. I'm ditching all these lousy plans and heading straight to the casino. Besides, I'm not spending time with all these stupid junior members. I mean, no offense, Austin. None taken, Gary, although I don't get why you think you won't have fun with all the employees. I mean, Rebecca also has a bunch of other things planned, and the CEO is going to be there too. Oh, Rebecca. I'm not interested in anything she's got planned. It's probably some stupid woke stuff. And listen, this conversation stays in this meeting. I know you like to tattle, Austin. I don't tattle, boss. I mean, sometimes I'm a little confused when you bring up ideas that other team members came up with, but nothing. I swear, Austin, when you started work here, I was this close to getting you fired. You didn't know when to quit and when to speak. I'm telling you, the truth about career growth is that you need to know people, not things. Yes, you're right, Gary. I know I am. Do you think someone like Brian got to where he is by just doing stuff? Nope, I bet he had the inside track with investors, and he knew who to go to and what favors to pull. That's how you get ahead. Hearing Gary talk made my blood boil. He seemed to idolize my brother, but never really found out how he became successful. His idea of success was just Brian's net worth, and not the decade he had spent creating the company. Gary was, in no uncertain terms, the embodiment of everything I hated about corporate shills. I made up my mind then and there that I would reveal the truth about my identity to him and his group before it was announced. I guess I was feeling a little bold, and to be honest, I just wanted to see the looks on their faces. Moving on to a better memory. That week in Vegas was amazing. I spent a lot of time doing all the activities my brother had planned. I forgot about my double life and felt like just an employee. During this time, I also found myself coming to a realization I had caught feelings for Rebecca. To be honest, this was something I had been struggling with for a while, especially after she became the HR head and I saw how passionate and driven she was. One of the things I look for in a partner is the need to improve and develop, and this girl had it by the boatload. But it was going to get messy if I confessed or sought to pursue a relationship with her. First off, people would ask questions about an HR head being with an employee from sales. Secondly, once the truth came out, the idea of being with Rebecca while being the co-founder of the company also terrified me. I didn't want anyone to worry about any favoritism going on. It was a complicated situation, made even more tense by the time we spent together in Vegas. All the fun events we did together, all the dinners, and late-night conversations made me realize that she had feelings for me too. The night before the final dinner, I let it slip. Hey Austin, I hope you've been having fun in Vegas. Oh? Haha? Yeah, it's nice, but... Yeah? Well, I'd be having fun anywhere as long as it's with you. Rebecca, you're an awesome person. Austin, you're an awesome person too. Hey. This is kind of awkward, but after the anniversary, would you like to maybe grab a coffee sometime? No, no more coffee. Oh, I just meant that I'm done with coffees, Austin, you goof. Don't take a girl who was a barista out for a coffee. How about a dinner date? After that conversation, I was equally excited and nervous. I hated the fact that I was lying about who I was, but I just couldn't hide my feelings anymore. Somehow, word got out that I had asked Rebecca out on a date, and when Gary found out, he was shocked. For the entirety of our last day in Vegas, he avoided me, and his friends would give me the stink eye anytime I was around. Finally, during the dinner party, I went up to him and confronted him. I was finally going to tell him just what I felt about his group of mediocre managers. Well, if it isn't Romeo. I thought you would have better taste than that, Austin. Oh, shut up, Gary. What? How dare you speak to me like that? I knew it was a mistake to take you under my wing. Here I thought you were finally learning what it means to get ahead in life, and then you go around making friends with people like Rebecca. No degree, nothing in her resume? I mean, is that who you want to be with? Ugh, dude, get your head out of the sand. Have you seen what she's done for us? The company is doing better than ever before. I could tell that my confrontation was getting to Gary. His ego just couldn't handle it. His face turned red, and he began to raise his voice. What would you know about running a company? Hell, you can't even get to my level, let alone a CEO like Brian. I mean, you should leave right now. This company wouldn't change one bit if you were gone. You're a loser. At this point, everyone was listening in. It was embarrassing, but not for me. Nobody liked Gary, and hearing him blow up like this wasn't doing any favors for him. His group of friends were also keeping their mouths shut. Just when I was about to tell Gary who I was, the MC announced from the stage that there was a special guest at the company. With a smirk on my face, I began to make my way to the stage, just as the words CEO's brother and co-founder boomed from the speakers. Gary couldn't believe it, and by the time he had put two and two together, I was standing at the mic. Hi everyone, I'm Austin, Brian's brother. I know some of you from sales might know me already, but the truth is, I was hiding my identity from you. The reason I wanted to do that was simple. I could see that there were bright people within our company who weren't getting the respect and credit they deserved. I've seen some problematic people in our workforce, and I can promise that there are going to be some changes around here. But I know this may seem like a breach of trust, and for that, I apologize. I just want to say that I'm super proud of the people in this company, and I'm going to take a much more active role in leading us from now on. I was honestly expecting a much worse reaction, but it went way better than I thought. A lot of people had questions about my year in sales and the reasoning behind it, but I answered everything truthfully and everyone was satisfied. Most of the employees were happy about the policy changes I brought up, and I made sure to individually call out all the people who had been wronged by Gary. All the stolen ideas were given their due credit, and I watched the corner of the room where Gary and his friends had formed a little bubble. I guess they could tell their time was up. After I went down from the stage to cheers and applause, there was one thought in my mind: what did Rebecca think about all this? I saw her in the corner, and the expression on her face filled me with dread. Austin, why didn't you tell me? Rebecca, I'm sorry, I couldn't tell anybody, even you. This is so weird. Did I get the HR position just because you liked me? No, it's not like that at all. I started having feelings for you after you got the position. Brian also had a lot of faith in you, and the reason we considered you for the position was because of the way you worked in the office. I mean, everybody listens to you, and you can solve problems between people while making everyone feel respected. I swear, Rebecca, there was no favoritism. I got her concerns, I really did. But after having a long conversation about everything, she was satisfied with my story. With all that done, our team packed their bags and entered a new era of leadership at the startup. For once, what happened in Vegas didn't just stay in Vegas. The first order of business was getting rid of Gary and all the people like him. It wasn't easy, and there were threats about suing for wrongful termination. But the evidence of their crappy behavior had been collected over a whole year, and no court would take their case. Along with that, I also implemented a ton of policies to make sure our organizational structure wasn't built like a pyramid. People began to let go of their preconceptions about reaching out to the CEO or any superior. Rebecca found amazing people within the company who could take up the vacated roles, and things began to move full steam ahead. Our projections for entering the global market looked more positive than ever. As for my relationship with Rebecca, we've decided to take things slow for now. I want her to see how I behave as a co-founder, and she wants to see how we can manage our personal and professional lives together. I think that's more than fair, but we're still committed to each other. I hate to get ahead of myself, but it feels like I've finally found the right girl for me. Nowadays, I get to come to an office that has a much freer environment. I can literally feel it in the air. People talk and share ideas without any concerns, and I've even had new employees come into my office for a chat without any fear. That's exactly what Brian wanted me to accomplish, and I think we've done the job quite well. My brother is super proud of my work in my first year back at the company, even if what I did was pretty unconventional. The only place we go from here is up. And Gary, if you're reading this, try and be less of a douche. There's no point in going to an Ivy League if your brain is stuck in first gear.